Hello, Excellent Wives in Training. This is Jill Ragg, joined by Domino. Well, it is spring break here in South Florida, and I was not planning to give my homeschool kids a week off, but we did have an opportunity to go to the beach today with friends from church, and so we took it. And now I am able to do a video not in my car. Well, it's been an exciting month focusing and setting our minds on eternity. And last week I shared with you my favorite verse, Galatians 6:9, for the busy labor years of parenting and homemaking, wifing. Do not grow weary in doing what is good, for in due season you shall reap if you do not give up. And I have to say, I do not always fulfill that purpose perfectly. There are times when I struggle and I do grow weary. There are times on occasion where I fall into self-pity or I just cast my eyes off of Christ and I put them on myself and I put them on today and on today's trial. And I grow weary because I've removed my eyes from Christ and removed my eyes from eternity. So the question is, what do we do in that moment when we are struggling to fix our eyes on Christ and fix our eyes on eternity? The answer lies in preaching truth to ourselves. So as I evaluate the struggle that I'm in, first of all, we have to take time to consider. We have to take time to set our minds on. So as we're going about the tasks that God has given our hands to do, in the moments in between little people's needs and wants and desires, we need to be thinking about, God, what do you want from me in this situation? God, even if this never changes, how can I praise you? God, whether or not this trial ever goes away, whether or not this child ever learns this thing that is hanging me up and distracting me or discouraging me, how can I set my mind on eternity and find peace and joy, which are fruit of the Spirit, in my heart and life? The things that we can preach to ourselves are found in Psalm 103. And I borrow these from Pastor Daron Roberts, who went through the psalm and wrote out the things that we can say to our soul that come directly from Psalm 103. The first one from verse 3 says, "Soul, listen to me. You merited hell, but you were rewarded with heaven." When I feel like my trial is so big and I remind myself that what I merit is hell, and yet I have so many blessings, it helps me to remember that I have been rewarded with many blessings here on earth and will be rewarded with heaven in the end. The second one from verse 4 and 19 of Psalm 103 is, "Soul, listen to me. You were a slave, but now you are a child of the King." This certainly helps me to keep a heavenward focus as I remember that I am a child of the King of Kings who reigns in heaven and that I will be with him someday. And that I could still be a slave to my sin, but I am not. The Lord has placed me in this home. He has given me himself. He has made me his child, and he cares for me like a father. And that helps me to endure in working hard and not growing weary. The third one from Psalm 103 is found in verses 5 and 6. "Soul, listen to me. God is not stingy when dispensing grace to you." There is no surprise that life is hard when we are moms, when we are cleaning house and taking care of young ones, and there are many needs that are at our feet for us to serve, and that God has ordained that for us as women, to be sanctified and to be made holy and to learn endurance that we did not necessarily learn when we were younger. God is not stingy in dispensing grace to us. When we truly look, we will see God's gracious, abundant gift of grace in our everyday moments. The fourth point that Darren points out is from verses 7 through 12. "Soul, listen to me. God's historical faithfulness only gives me the precedence to trust him. He has been faithful. He has never been unfaithful. I am unfaithful, and when I'm growing weary and I want to quit, or I am wallowing in self-pity, I am not being faithful. I am not preaching truth to myself, and I need to stop and preach that truth to myself and keep my eyes fixed on eternity and keep my eyes fixed on my God. The fifth, from verses 13 through 14, soul, listen to me. Your Father knows your sinful frailties and pours compassion on you, his child. We know from 1 Corinthians as well that when we are weak, God's strength is perfected in us. And so when we are even more dependent upon him, we can see his grace in greater and greater ways. God knows our weaknesses as moms. He knows our weaknesses as wives. He knows our weaknesses in caring for our home and the ways that we struggle with laziness or perfectionism, the things we need to cast off, the things he's working in us. He pours compassion on us if we will get out of our pity party and focus on recognizing what he's doing in our lives through us. We may not understand the why, but we can certainly trust his faithful hand. And the last thing to preach to ourselves from Psalm 103, verses 15 to 22. Soul, listen to me. Life is temporary. God is eternal. Live for his glory. So if nothing else, we live for God's glory, and we remind ourselves that this life is very, very short, that eternity is very, very long, and we are called to run this race called life here on earth with endurance, keeping our eyes fixed on God, on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross. So if he endured the cross, we can endure the trials that are coming day after day in this sinful life, and we can press on towards the goal of the upward call in Christ Jesus. So may we keep our eyes fixed on heaven, and may we not grow weary in doing what is right and good. May we smile at the future and be clothed with strength and dignity, as Proverbs 31 says. I pray, friends, as we all struggle in this sin-filled life, that we remember the perfect kingdom that God is making for us, and that we will go to and worship him forever. And in the meantime, we are to keep busy with what he has given our hands to do with faithfulness, just as he is faithful.